Okay, so we're back at Access Chapter 2, Pause and Practice 2. I'm going to actually break this up into two short videos because there's some concepts that are pretty important and I don't want to take too long in one of these. So one of the things we're going to get into, and this is a problem if you think about our fields here, is that what prevents someone from putting an equipment ID that is completely wrong? Well, nothing. It's garbage in is garbage out, but there are ways that we can prevent certain things. Like, for instance, if the equipment ID had to be 5 numbers or 5 letters, we can set it up to where it has to be at least 5 digits or 5 alphabetic numbers or a combination. And that has to be at least what it goes in. Now, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't make a mistake still, but we do limit the kind of mistakes that it would be. It would be a typo versus putting in something completely wrong. That's why, like when you put in your social security number in or your phone number, those areas are fixed in terms of having to put in your area code and your phone number because the database has been set up that way. So these are called validation rules, and we can also give a an error message to the user that they've made a mistake. So here's how it works. So we're going to do it for equipment ID, and we're going to say that we only will allow this to be 5 numbers, 5 numbers. So if you look right down here in our property field properties, we can put something in here. There's a build box over here on the right, but we don't need it for this. Here's what you're going to type for this one. We would type like, and then in quotation marks, 5 number signs or pound signs, 4 or 5. So that means, and the pound sign means that it has to be a number. The validation text right below it is what the error message will say if somebody tries to type in A, B, C, D, E, or A, 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's not 5 digits, then it will not work. So the equipment ID must contain 5 numbers. So that's a pop-up that tells them that they've made a mistake. So you save this, and let's go test it. I'm going to say no on this because we have no information in there. And you can see that that's already been set up. Okay. So if I went down to a new piece of equipment, I typed in A 1212. That. So that's a good idea of being able to do that. The next one, then, for instance, if I typed in 123, just 3. But if I type in 12345, then it allows me to input and move forward. Okay, so I don't want this one, so I'm going to delete square one. Okay, so that's how that one works. Now, let's look at our next one for the validation rules. So what we're going to look at for this one's a little bit different. So if you look at our weekly and monthly, and I actually need to add one more within this one too, because I did not put in a daily rental rate that we need as well. So let me put that in real quick. Okay, and this one is also going to be currency. So we've got these, and this will be 0. It just wasn't imported in with the other ones. But it would be fair to say that our daily rental rate, we don't want our daily to be more than our weekly and our weekly to be more than our monthly. So like if the daily was $50 a day, we don't want our weekly to be $25 for a week. That doesn't make any sense. So we can set up a rule that says I want weekly to be greater than daily, but I also want monthly to be greater than weekly. So that way it's always an increasing price depending on time. Again, we might put in the wrong values, but we can set up some rules so somebody doesn't accidentally put $10 in versus $100, and we can kind of set some validation to the data that we are putting in. So this one's a little bit different because it's not just one field like it was with equipment ID, it's 3. So what we have to do is we have to go to this property sheet up here, which gives us these properties over here, and set up a record validation rule, which is right here. And I'm going to build it so I can see it a little bit better. Okay. And for this one, notice our field names are right down here, which helps us to build this particular one, because I want the weekly, which puts it up here, to be greater than our daily. And I also want our monthly to be greater than our weekly. So we've set up a rule that impacted 3 different fields there. And once you get that right, you click OK. And then we do have validation text, which shows us, and then we can zoom in on this one. I did that by right-clicking. Okay, and I'm going to type in the weekly rate must be greater than the daily rate, and the monthly rate must be greater than the weekly rate. And that'll be the pop-up if we make a mistake. So when I test this, and I'm going to say no on that again, but on the first one, I can check this out and see how this works. So for this one, as I go through this, 0, 0, 0, the rule because it's 0 each one and it's not greater. So before I can save this particular one, I have to make sure that it fills in correctly. And I beat the, I made what it needs to be. So if I put in, for instance, 160, well, let's go back and do this again. Tab through 160, 160, 160. Again, once I try to save the record by going. So I've got to get this right based on those rules before I can do anything else. So if I went 160, 320, 640, and it allows me to put that in. Okay, so that's called a record validation, and I will get those set up right between going to this and the next one. But that's a little bit on validation rules. Okay, so we did the one here for an individual field, and then we did a record validation, which means we had to go to our table properties. So I do both of those from this particular one. So remember, equipment ID, use your field properties down here. And then for our record validation, you use your property sheet. Okay, so I'm going to go and move into the next one here in just a minute. So that's it on validation rules.